What really is important is it has to be something that lights a fire in you. I feel like something's missing. I want to save the world. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that would look like. Starting to try really hard to engage my generation and the younger generation and let them know that we all want to see change and you can do it. You can do it. But if you're out there and you're telling people like you can be the solution, you're making the next generation better for it. You're making yourself better for it, and you're making the world around you better for it.
Most people think giving is about saying yes. Yes to the need, yes to the opportunity, yes to helping. But what happens when you can't say yes to everything? In this conversation with Morgan DeNicola, we get into something most people don't talk about: how to know when to step in and when you have to step back. Let's begin. Morgan, such a pleasure to have you with us on You Are What You Give. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Morgan, we had an opportunity to speak a couple of weeks ago, and I got such a strong sense of your commitment to the work that you're doing. You're running a family foundation, but you're not only running a family foundation, you initiated the whole process. You went to your family and you said, we need to create a foundation. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I was able to take a trip for my dad on behalf of my dad to Africa. And I was in marketing and in the business. My dad and my mom are serial entrepreneurs. And my dad said, I can't take this trip to Africa. Will you go? And I was like, okay, this is cool. I've never been there. I'm not sure what I'm doing there. He asked me to just take notes and kind of observe this group interacting with this other group. And so I said, fine, I can go and take notes. That's not a problem. But one of the stops we made was to an orphanage. And I got to spend about 2 days in the orphanage and meeting the children and the people who ran it. And I had this incredible experience with a bunch of the children there, especially one child that wasn't able to smile. She just kind of, seemed really sad. And they said, yeah, we can't get her to smile. She's 2 years old. And without thinking, I scooped her up into my arms, and she was looking really confused at me, blonde hair. And so I took my hair down from my ponytail and kind of like rubbed it on her face, and she smiled. And then I smiled. And we had this moment where we were engaging with one another, but not using words. She didn't speak to me. I didn't really speak to her. But I had this just overwhelming moment, like, oh my God, I have purpose in this moment.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just this incredible light bulb. I felt warm. I felt, ready to go, ready to kind of conquer the world. And when I came back home, my poor father says to me, well, how did it go? And I was like, it's incredible. It was an incredible experience. It's amazing what these groups of people are trying to accomplish and help people. And I don't think that I can go back to marketing. And he, what do you mean you can't go back to marketing? And I said, I can't. Like, I feel like something's missing. And he says, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I want to save the world. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that would look like. And so I left and I went back to school. Thought to myself, maybe I need to work with animals because I've always felt at peace with animals. And in the process of me kind of going out and trying to find myself, my dad sat down with my mom and, they said, people are asking where you're at and what you're doing. And we decided that we want to make this happen. We want to create a small charity at first, and we want you to run it. And I said, I don't know how to run a charity. I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, well, you're going to learn. And I started surrounding myself with incredible people doing amazing things, charitable work, philanthropy. And I started to just absorb all the things that they were saying. And we took this small charity that was Cosmo Cares, and we grew it and created our family foundation and tried to represent everyone in our family, which can be a little difficult because we're all very different. But it became this goal for me and especially my dad to really start to give back to the world around us because we felt so lucky, and my parents had always done that. But,
Right.
we decided to take it to the next level and make it an official thing.
So, Morgan, you go to Africa representing your father as a member of the board of another nonprofit, an existing nonprofit, and you get the bug. You want to give. You have a sense of purpose. And you get back home and you're going to put the email marketing on the side and start a new chapter of your life, which becomes a new chapter for your family's life. Now, one of the things that I love about what you said is you know you want to be purposeful, you know you want to save the world, but you don't know how. That's exciting. So many people want to do that next step. What was the first big eye opener for you that helped you understand what the path was going to look like?
I would say starting to engage with other groups that were doing similar things. So starting to see local chapters that were doing pantry programs, book bag drives, pajamas for children in hospitals, seeing what they were doing. I was lucky enough to work with a few smaller groups and see what they were doing. And it just became more and more of you got to see firsthand how happy either the kids or the parents or the teachers were. And it became more and more addicting, for lack of a better term, because you realized you can help, you can have a purpose, but then trying to make it your own, trying to have it be your way of doing it, seeing the issues that people, especially the younger generation, were having with philanthropy and charity, and kind of that lack of trust or being unsure of what they can contribute to the world, and trying to find ways that anybody and everybody could be a part of what it was that you're doing. And if they didn't want to join you, getting them in touch with another group that was doing something similar. And that became a little bit of the business that I watched my parents do. Started to incorporate how they ran businesses and starting to merge the two, philanthropy, charity, business, and starting to try really hard to engage my generation and the younger generation and let them know that we all want to see change and you can do it. You can do it.
There's so much here in this journey that you're explaining to us and taking us through. First, there's that something that's broken, maybe even a mistrust about the way that things are done, and your ability to hone in on that and understand, one second, we can do this better. Can you give me an example of someone or some situation where things were not well aligned and you were able to step in and maybe help recalibrate or engage someone or a group of people that otherwise wouldn't have joined the team?
I think it was teaming up with different groups that really wanted you to write checks. I think that that's a big thing. And then when it comes to fundraising, I understand it. I see it. But what I was hearing a lot from the people that you want to have help you do this fundraising was, I don't know where that money's going. You don't. That's a very fair point. And I realized that was a lot of the question that people that wanted to join or be a part of had. Where is that money going? Is it going to pay somebody's salary? Because then I don't get the warm, tingly feeling of I'm helping somebody. So what we started to do was make the shifts of, okay, we're not going to, on occasion, we'll write a check for grant opportunities and things like that, but we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to say, hey, you help us get a washer and dryer into a school. Washer and dryer. That's where every dime, it's not going to my salary. It's not going to this group or that group, overhead to keep the lights on, even though that is important. But I think it's the transparency that the younger generation really wants to see, because they want to have that feeling that they're a part of a solution and not just a part of the day-to-day activities. And I think that's where the big light bulb started to happen, and that kind of fire and lighting it into different people is, I would say, okay, you gave me $5, or you helped me physically get a backpack. You got me a backpack. and I'll show you exactly where that backpack is going. And look at this child. Look at what you did. You made that kid so happy because now he has a new backpack, or you allowed this child to be able to at least get their wash done at school because they weren't able to do that at home. And starting to show people that there are groups out there that will give you that full transparency, and also explaining that to other people that wanted us to team up with them is, hey, anything that I'm going to team up with you to do has to be 100% transparent. So I would prefer to get you items that you need, lunches, physical items, school supplies. And it was really well received, not at first, because a lot of people would say, well, we do need to keep our lights on. Okay, I understand that, but I'm not going to be the person that does that. But I
Right.
can take something else off your plate that you need to accomplish.
So that's actually a critical point. We're looking at it now really from both ends, from the perspective of the funder and the perspective of the nonprofit. And I actually love working with both groups, and you're being extremely insightful by helping kind of both groups better understand the other. There's something about, obviously going each way, right? The nonprofit does need to keep the lights on, and there are ways of doing that. And there are efficiencies in that process. The transparency is critical. And then, of course, from the perspective of the donor, some people have an appetite for organizational development or capacity. They want to see the organization grow, and other people and it also depends oftentimes on the size of the gift, but not always. There's not always a one-to-one correlation. But that could be a factor where sometimes they just say, I want the washer and the dryer. But what I want to ask you about is not the transactional piece of this, but the relationship piece. Did you find when you were able to communicate the outcomes to the people who were putting their hands into their pockets and giving something, was that a relationship builder, or was it just a validation of, okay, there's someone that I can trust here?
It was a relationship builder. We very much, especially me, I say join my team, join my family. This is a family foundation. I don't want you to feel like you're somebody that I'm just going to for money or for specific things. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you're nervous about. I want to hear your ideas of these solutions, because we've been doing philanthropy. It's always been the same issues, right? Since the beginning of time. It's always been the same issues down at the root. And we've been going at it kind of the same way. And the younger generation now has different ideas, different ways of approaching this. So I say, join my family, join part of what I am. I want to hear everything that's going on in you. And I also want to know you as a person. That's a big thing for me. Is I'm not the type of person that if you message me, I'm like, well, I'm not doing a fundraiser, so I don't really need to talk. I want to know, how's your family doing? How are you doing in school if you're still in school? How do you feel? Are you feeling anxious at this moment in time where a lot of people are struggling? What are your fears? What are your hopes? I think that a big thing for me is allowing people to feel seen and in anything that they do. And if you don't give them that legitimate connection to what it is they're doing, to what it is I'm doing, what are we doing here? It's the human and humanitarian work. We need to start creating these connections and allowing people to be a part of something that's so much more than these one-off programs.
Right.
They have to feel like they're a part of it.
Absolutely. And I love what you're saying, the connections and the humanitarian and the human. And there's just as, life is bigger than ourselves as individuals. We have an idea, we want to do something, we want to accomplish something, but we want to bring people on board. It's an organization. It's like you say, I love how you say a family foundation, and you're inviting people into your family. That's powerful. And so you've got this healthy orientation where you're finding ways to bring people along. It's not just you working with your folks, maybe your brother on some of these projects, but it's you bringing people along and creating some momentum here. At what point do you begin to figure out what's your niche or what are your focus areas? And how do you go about figuring that out? Someone has just set up a family foundation. They're watching Morgan. They want to understand how this works. And they know that they've put aside a certain amount of money, and there are tax breaks involved in it. And there's all sorts of calculations that make sense from a financial perspective. But now what? We know all the money's sitting in a foundation and not going anywhere. It's got to go to projects. How do you decide where it's going to go?
This is really important because, like we were saying, the need is blanketed. It's everywhere. There's not a place that I can point at on this map that's like, no, they got it. Um, there's a need everywhere. And what really is important is it has to be something that lights a fire in you. It has to be something that you're doing that you can wake up every day and say, I want to keep doing this because the need's going to keep coming. This is a never ending thing. So when you have those moments where you get burnt out because it happens, or you have to say no, and you get so sad and down on yourself, you need to have that fire and be like, no, this is something that I am absolutely passionate about. And this is something that I truly believe in myself matters, and that I can have a hand in at least alleviating some of these issues. Passion is absolutely everything in a philanthropic world. You have to care, and you have to wake up every day going, okay, I'm going to go at it again, or you're going to burn out and you're going to say, I can't resolve this. I'm not the solution, and you're going to leave it. That happens so often.
It's true.
And you need that.
I want to push back on that for a second, Morgan. I want to challenge you because I think there's something in your words that has a solution to a challenge. One of the challenges is people who are not as engaged in their family foundations, and I am not criticizing. If you've set up a family foundation and you are giving to causes that are meaningful, purposeful, keep doing it. But a lot of people are not rolling their sleeves up like you are. And maybe because they're afraid of the passion, because the passion could bring the burnout, right? If we don't care as much, we can't get burnt. If we don't scoop up the 2-year-old in our arms, then no harm done, right? We just sent a check overseas. Someone else is going to do the work. What would you say to someone who, at least at this stage in their life, they prefer the hands-off approach? It's easier, it's less burnout, it's less worry, and after all, they're busy.
You still have to care. I understand not wanting to get too close to the fire because you don't want to get burnt. I understand that. But my word of caution for that is, if there isn't the passion behind it, you're not really the solution. You're putting a Band-Aid on something. And you know what? That if you are okay with supplying the Band-Aids, I'm not going
Someone's got
to
to give
poo-poo on
Band-Aids.
that. Uh, that's completely and totally fine. But we all have this ability to be that spark for that fire, for that wildfire in another person. And I think as humans, that is an obligation to us, that we are obligated to inspire the world around us to be a little bit better. It's what we're meant to do. We're meant to evolve. We're meant to grow. And that it involves encouraging other people. And the only way you're going to encourage other people and have a sustaining impact is to light that fire in other people, not just sit there and write the checks and go about your business. People are going to be like, oh yeah, great, another check. Yeah, I can keep this going. That's great. But nobody around you is going to be inspired by you. You're going to be another one of those individuals that kind of are what makes the younger generation a little cautious and be like, well, are you just trying to buy your way into God's good graces? What is it that you're truly doing? And there's then that lack of trust. But if you're out there and you're inspiring and you're telling people like you can be the solution and you're proof of it, you're making the next generation better for it. You're making yourself better for it, and you're making the world around you better for it. And yeah, you can get burnt, but you can get burnt literally doing anything. So why not get burnt
If it's
trying to
worth
do some
doing,
good?
yeah, if it's worth doing, and if you're going to make a change and you're going to make an impact, it's going to require some blood and sweat, and rolling up
Mhm.
those sleeves, breaking a few
And
nails.
tears, a
Yes,
lot of
that's right.
tears.
That's right. Well, tell me, if you don't mind, one example of igniting a flame in others and one example of the tears.
Oh, I personally love to get engaged with schools that are doing volunteer programs. I absolutely love it. We do cards sometimes to people in senior centers or the war vets and things like that, where we'll bring them like tasty cakes and sodas, but like cards written by kids. And they get so excited. And when I'm able to go into these classrooms and say, this is something that seems so simple and so whatever to you, they tend to be teenagers. But I can come in with examples of like, do you know that this card can make somebody's year who's sitting there very lonely, who's sitting there very sad? Your words can make somebody say, I'm going to have a good day. It's that simple. And to be able to go into these schools, we also have a humanitarian award called the Bright Light Award, where we find students they're more in elementary school, that are doing philanthropic things, that set up lemonade stands and raise money for cancer treatment, or a big one was pajamas for children in a children's hospital. And we go into the schools and we do a big assembly and we give them these awards. The kids don't know they're going to get it. We call in the parents and everything, and we give them these awards and pull them up in front of the entire class or school. And we say, look at what this individual is doing. Here's a plaque. Here's an acknowledgement. Here's a check towards what it is that you're doing, so you can get more pajamas. That's when we do like a little check for the children. But the amount of students after the last one we just did that came up to us and said, I'm going to get it next year. And they want that acknowledgement. They want to be a part of it. They want to hear their classes cheer. And for people to know that there's people out there that's going to acknowledge the good work that they do, that's lighting the fire. That's lighting the fire in the youth. That's showing them that you're listening and you're paying attention, that the things that they do matter. And it's engaging them and again, getting them excited. I think that, I like to say caring is cool. I know my nieces would be like, that's incredibly lame that you just said that. But I think being an example of that, it is really cool, and that you can meet a lot of incredible people and do a lot of incredible things with something that is in your free time, with something that might not seem that big. It is big, and proving that it is big to a person. So that's a big one that I love to do. And I love to do these podcasts because I say, if I can get in front of one person, just one person, and them go, I can do that. That's lighting the flame. That's why I love doing these podcasts. That's what we're trying to do, is reach as many people as possible and encourage them to do something.
First of all, I love your examples of igniting a flame. Just to be clear, many people who will roll up their sleeves and will light a flame in another, it's not that they're giving them the flame of giving. They're giving them the flame of something. It may or may not be something that continues to light other flames. But what's beautiful about the candle is that one candle can light another without losing any of its flame, right? It's not either or. You get to light someone else who's going to ignite another flame. And so you're actually creating a domino effect, a ripple effect that's going way beyond that initial flame that you've lit. And I've got all kinds of stories that pop into my mind right now, but I'm not going to go there. Instead, I want your stories. So those are great, great, great examples. I love your award ceremony, and I love celebrating giving. I love finding ways to do that. I didn't know that you guys did that. I think it's outstanding. And it does exactly what you just said, right? Everybody comes over afterwards and says, I'm going to do that. This healthy competition that you're creating. And just,
Yes.
can you one up the guy who gave better, the guy who realized that it was cool to care? So that's really just exceptional. But I do want to not forget my previous question, Morgan. We talked a little bit about the inspiration. What about the tears?
The tears come for me almost on a regular basis, just because, again, it's a constant need. So I get a lot of text messages and emails, and even the text messages are from, like I said, I'm building a family. I'm building a family around the world, and to hear about every person at one point or another is going to seriously struggle, and there are times that you can't help them. And I think that's the hardest thing for anybody who decides to dedicate their life to trying to make things better for people, is there is always a time you have to say no, or you can't figure it out. And I spend a lot of time crying about that. And I'm married, and sometimes I say to my wife, I'm like, I'll just cry to her, and she goes, "What happened?" It's like, I can't figure this one out. I can't help this person, or I have to say no, or I don't have something that large in my budget to be able to, rebuild this person's house that just went through a fire. Or there's a lot of examples of that, and you just break down and you cry because you want to save everyone. You want to help everyone. I never like to say no, but there are times where you have to say no, or you physically burn out, and it gets to be a very hard time for you. And I think it's okay to cry it out. I cry for a good amount, but I know that the next day it's on me to get up and figure out a way, or help somebody else, or keep going. And I think that's kind of what relights me and keeps me going, is I know, okay, yesterday I had to say no, or yesterday I couldn't help somebody. But you know what? I slept on it. I might be able to get them in touch with this person, or I might be able to figure this out. Or you know what? Here's 6 other things, programs that I can start moving on until I can either figure this out, or I might not ever be able to figure that out. And that's okay, because I'm a human being, and there are going to be times that I'm not going to be able to always hit a home run. There are going to be times that I strike out, but what do? You get back out there when it's time to swing again, and that's your job. And that is, in my opinion, my reason to get up every day.
If I could only just in a minor way encourage you, and it doesn't sound like you need encouragement, it sounds like you already have the formula, but there are, as you just described, there are alternatives. You're actually, there is no one person, even the wealthiest individual in the world, or even government, that has enough money to go around to solve everything. And oh, by the way, money doesn't solve all problems. In fact, there's a great many that it does not solve at all. And so we need the money to make the programs happen and to make other things happen. It is an enabler, but it is not the only enabler. And so, number one, the way that you address this with, maybe I have 6 other ways of going about helping these people or this project, by all means, that's outstanding. And maybe it just wasn't your role to bankroll this particular project. And that's great, because you're going to find alternatives, and maybe you know the person who will. But there's another level to this, which is you don't even have the time always to give the 6 alternatives, because you're, again, one family foundation, which is with a broadening family, but ultimately their budgets and resources have their limits. And so sometimes, as I understand it, the best way to say yes is knowing when to say no. To do really well with your
Absolutely.
yeses, to do really good work, means knowing how to say no sometimes to great opportunities, the ones that you cry about,
Yes.
right? They're the great
Yes.
opportunities. You wish you could do that, but you're so committed to what you're already doing. If you try to do everything, you will do nothing. And so just,
Exactly.
I hope that's in some way encouraging, but I want other people to also be able to hear this, because again, we're on the podcast, so other people will also get an understanding, an idea, and an appreciation. It's actually not your role to solve all the problems. It is your role to do your best to solve the ones that you're already committed to. And I think that's really a great starting point. But Morgan, you're seeing this again from so many different angles, and you're involved now in multiple nonprofits, and you have senior leadership roles, and you're doing everything from the home for the elderly, and the kids in school, and you haven't mentioned the United Nations and your international travel, and you'll hop on a plane, even though I've discovered that you don't like hopping on planes, but you will do it
Hate
because you're going
airplanes.
to do the work that needs to get done. You're seeing it from, the nonprofit angle, and you're also seeing it from the funding angle, right? The family foundation that needs to make the budgeting decisions and know when to say yes and when to say no. If we could close with one really solid piece of advice that you would give to the nonprofits, something that they might be getting wrong, and that you would advise them that they could up their game if they would get it right. And then similarly, or maybe a very different kind of piece of advice, what might you advise funders to do better?
I think that a lot of philanthropic groups need to engage the youth a lot more, and by engage, I mean listen to them. Do junior board members, do allow them to be a part of the grant, reading the grants, allow them to have a part and a say in the decision making, because that encourages them to get way more involved, and not for nothing, that prepares them for future careers, that prepares them for public speaking, teamwork, so many things. So I think we're missing a piece of really truly pulling in the leaders of tomorrow and allowing them to be a part of what we are doing now. So my advice, and one, they have great ideas. They can I mean, so many help me with social media. I am lost when they're
For
like, "Oh, this
sure.
is a trend." I'm like, "What is a trend? I don't even know what you're talking." And they'll help me through, and honestly, having their ideas and their insights on what the issues are and some solutions, it encourages them and encourages you. It breathes life into you. And
You
it
see
really,
things that you
really
wouldn't have seen on
prepares.
your own.
Absolutely not. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who view everything drastically different than you. Your table should look so diverse, and you shouldn't just have people with the same vision as you, because it's going to get stagnant and there's going to be a lot of issues. So I think it's very important to surround yourself with the next generation, the older generation, and a lot of people that don't view it the same way as you. I think you'll resolve a lot more issues, and they'll have a lot more foresight on things that might happen. So that would be my advice to other charitable groups and philanthropic groups. And in terms of the people that want to do the charitable giving, find your passion, find one thing. Like I said, I get burnt out because of the numerous things, but find that one thing that you are so passionate about and focus on that. I know that there's so many needs, and we get bombarded on the TV, on the internet of all these different needs, but focus on that one thing and really get your hands dirty in that one thing and get engaged in those communities, because it will take your level of giving, it will take your level of connectivity to just a crazy level that you didn't even know was possible. And have a little faith. Find those groups that you do trust, that do
Mhm.
have the transparency, that you do feel like you're part of the solution. Find those, because you'll feel wonderful and confident in what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, and I love the litmus test of make sure you're losing sleep over something, right? If you're not losing sleep over something, then, the cause and the purpose, they're just not aligning so much. I'm not saying never fall asleep, but challenge yourself, right? To be bothered by something enough to really care, to find some way to make it better.
Yeah, be empathetic, not apathetic.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Morgan, this is like a roller coaster through so many different angles on what it is that you're building. I feel like there's going to be many more opportunities in the future to check in with you and just get an idea of whatever it is you're up to next. We only touched upon the kind of scratching the surface on some of the many things that you and the foundation are involved in. Can you tell us, if anyone wants to get involved, how can they find you?
We have our own webpage, so it's the DeNicola Family Foundation.org, and it tells you what we're up to, but there's also this beautiful contact us page, and so you can write to us, and by us I mean 9 times out of 10 it's me. So you would just be talking directly to me. Tell us your ideas. Tell us things you want to see, or things that you find an issue with. I love that. Start a conversation and feel confident in starting a conversation. I'm a human being and I have a great sense of humor, so I shouldn't intimidate you at all. But we're also on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook, DeNicola Family Foundation. And if you message us on that, guess what? You'll also get me. So um, it's not any robot or somebody intimidating.
Yeah, Morgan, sounds like you've learned a thing or two about social media.
I have, like I said, I have those young those younger kids kind of letting me know what's up and how to properly do it all. So thank you to anybody that's watching that helps me out. Thank you a lot.
Well, Morgan, it's great that you're giving thanks, but I think it's also great that you're inviting people into the family and you're expanding your family all the time. You're giving people that access, and I don't think anyone is intimidated by you, Morgan. I think it's actually
Good.
very comforting to know that you're on the other end of that. It's not just a bot. It's not something that's going to, some AI machine that's going to spit something out. It's a real person, because that's what this is all about, right? This is people work, and you're doing an outstanding job. Morgan, keep up the good work. Looking forward to hearing more updates about where you're going, and I trust that people will be getting in touch with you. Thank you so much for your time today. Morgan, thank you. This conversation brings out something that's easy to miss. Giving isn't just about generosity. It's also about judgment, knowing when to step in and having the discipline to step back when you need to, because your ability to make a difference depends on focus. If that tension feels familiar, or if it's something you're still figuring out, stick with it. And look out for this week's Giving Challenge, where we take that idea of yes and no and turn it into something practical. Thank you, Victoria Hurst, for making these conversations possible. And thank you all. We'll see you next time on You Are What You Give.